My story is called A Trip Like That. I'd been about to head out to lunch when the front desk buzzed through to tell me 2 girls had come into the station and needed to be interviewed. My dreams of a spicy chicken wrap faded away as I pushed open the door to reception and heard a reedy voice piping. That's Lauren Bailey and her cousin Jeanette. Constable Dave Feene nodded at the girl doing all the talking. Is Jeanette a Bailey as well? I asked as he handed me their incomplete form. Yes, Jeanette is a Bailey. Our dads are brothers. We always joke that my dad's the clever one, as he works out the bus timetables and Jeanette's dad drives them. The buses, that is, not the timetables. Lauren Bailey carried on talking as I escorted the girls into an interview room. By contrast, her cousin Jeanette trailed silently after her, head down, staring at the scarred grey floor. And I said to Jeanette, we've got to take this to the police, but she didn't seem to understand. I tried telling her. Lauren sat down far too heavily, knocking all the air out of her gizzard. My stomach decided to fill the silence with an ominous rumble. I watched Jeanette perch nervously on the edge of a seat, almost as if she thought she may have to take flight at any moment. Are you okay, Jeanette? Would you like some water? She shook her head at me, her hair bouncing away from her face. I'll tell you what happened, said Lauren. I don't think Jeanette's quite sure. Well, I'm not really. Anyway, it all started because Jeanette wanted a boyfriend. Lauren had immaculate hair. Every strand straightened, serumed, perfect lines of blonde streaked in. Jeanette's curly hair looked natural, and from what I could see of her face, there was little or no makeup present. She was staring at the veneered tabletop, almost as if it was the most interesting thing in the world, listening to her cousin telling me how she, Jeanette, was hopeless on the dating scene, a disaster at attracting potential mates. According to Lauren, she wasn't able to catch a man, let alone keep one. And I told Jeanette that it's when you least expect to get a boyfriend that one turns up. You met someone, did you, Jeanette? I cut in quickly before Lauren could take another breath. Slowly, Jeanette raised her head to look at me and nodded, and then she looked straight back down again. What's your boyfriend's name, Jeanette? John Regal, said Lauren. She was smitten with him. I hardly ever saw her after that. They went on loads of dates. Lauren gave her a small gold earring a flick to straighten it. And then he asked her to go on holiday to San Francisco. And Jeanette went, did she? Oh, yes, she went all right. Lauren rubbed her hands together. She wasn't going to turn down a trip like that. She's not been further than Tenerife. Tell her, Jeanette, go on. Jeanette's face came up like a reluctant sun on a winter's morning. We had a wonderful time, she said, her bottom lip quivering as she spoke. John said we had to experience the place for ourselves and not go on any tacky tours. He found us a favourite restaurant overlooking the bay. You could see the lights from the Golden Gate Bridge shining down on the water. Just like white lightning, John said it was. He had lots of places planned for us to visit. Her voice trailed away, her expression a mask of misery. I looked back at Lauren. She was biting her lip. And then John died, she said. I almost dropped my pen. What? I said. How did he die? Well, Lauren shimmied forward on her seat. Jeanette woke up one morning, and John had left a note on her pillow saying he was going out to buy her something. A ring, said Jeanette. You don't know that, said Lauren. He put in a note he was getting you something special, not an engagement ring. Jeanette was starting to get worried about where he was when the police rang her and said he'd been run over by a tram. It was a cable car, said Jeanette. They call them cable cars, not trams. John said we had to get that right. They're not trams, he said. All right, he got killed by a cable car then, said Lauren. Was it an accident? I asked. The police said it was. That's what they told you, isn't it? Jeanette nodded. I couldn't believe it, she said. I still can't believe it. I keep thinking I see him everywhere I look. Jeanette went to pieces. Auntie Elaine, that's her mum. She had to fly over and help sort out the death stuff. Formalities, said Jeanette. Shouldn't his family have done that, I asked. The British consulate would surely have contacted them. John didn't have any family, or any friends, said Lauren. I thought that was a bit weird when I found out. He had me, said Jeanette. John said he loved me more than any girl he'd ever known, and that's how I know he was going to buy me a ring. I thought for a moment Lauren was looking at me, but she wasn't. Her mind was clearly far away, chewing through something like a tough piece of meat. So our family had to do everything, she said, her gaze coming back into focus. And one of those things was to go to his flat and think about cleaning it all out. Jeanette let out a sob. Her eyes were streaming with tears. I shoved a box of tissues on the table towards her. She grabbed a few to wipe her eyes, then balled them up in the palm of her hand. And then we found these, said Lauren. Well, I found them, really, on a shelf in the living room. When they came in, Lauren had been carrying a Tesco bag for life. It had gone under her chair when she fell in it. Now she pulled the bag out, tipped its contents onto the table. 5 photo albums slid out in front of us, stopping just shy of the tissue box. Jeanette's spine went rigid when she saw the folders. A sense of unease gripped me. I shook off the shivers racing down my back. This was the first one I looked at, said Lauren, opening it. There, see, Lucy Westcott. A photo-booth snap of a brunette in her early 20s was at the top of the page. Underneath was a piece of paper with her name and some very personal details set out in small, neat handwriting. That's not right, is it? Said Lauren. I pried the album very gently from her grip. She'd stopped talking and was looking intently at the photo. It's all crap after that, she said. The other slots of photos in the album had been filled with various receipts, tickets and flyers from bands and events. Look at that, said Lauren, her finger stabbing at the last page. It held a clipping from a newspaper showing the story of an as yet unidentified girl found drowned in Lake Windermere. The report stated it was suspected she'd fallen from the path. Awful, said Lauren. That's her, I reckon, Lucy Westcott. Jeanette cried harder. She was picking bits from her ball of tissues, rolling them between her fingers. Lauren got out of her seat, put her palm over her cousin's hands and gave them a squeeze. It'll be all right now. We're here, aren't we, eh? This nice police lady will make sense of it all. The next 2 albums were versions of Kelly Westcott's folder. Different girls, similar looking, each with a newspaper report of a girl's untimely death at the back. One girl had been discovered in the French Pyrenees. She'd fallen to her death, it said, and what the vultures had left had to be winched out of a deep pass. That's the one you want to look at next, said Lauren, pointing. The green one. Jeanette whimpered. I flipped the cover and saw a picture of her, Jeanette, beaming away happily, her dark brown eyes crinkled into her smile. There were intimate details written out, just like in the other folders. A quick flick through the pages had a few bits of paper marking the passage through her and John's brief dating history. But of course there was no more, because John wasn't around to finish it. And that's all the albums you found at the flat, is it? Lauren? Lauren was crouching by Jeanette, her arm around her cousin's shoulder. What? No, there were quite a few more, but John only had one carrier bag in his kitchen, and that's all the folders I could fit in.